Okay, in this video, we're going to pick up from where we left off in the last one by finding the center, vertices, and foci of an ellipse. So example 1c, we have x plus 5 in parentheses squared all over 49 plus y minus 2 in parentheses squared over 25 equals 1. So this time we are shifting the coordinates of the center because now we have x plus 5 in parentheses squared and y minus 2 in parentheses squared. So here our new center is going to be at -5 and +2. So let's take a look at the graph of example 1c. And I'm going to have to adjust this here. So again, I changed the center enough that I had to translate the entire Desmos screen as well. But now our center is at -5, 2. So -5, 2. And we'll label that C for center. Whoop, didn't want to do that. Okay. So next up are the vertices. And for the vertices, notice that the larger denominator, 49, is below the x. So because our bigger denominator is below the x, that means our ellipse is going to be wider than it is tall. So in this case, we have a squared equals 49. Yeah, I fixed the typos. And that's going to give us a equals plus or minus 7. So from our center, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces to the left. And we have -12, 2. And we're going to count 7 spaces to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And get +2 and 2. So we're going to add and subtract 7 from the x coordinate of our vertex, going left and right. And again, it's going to give us -12, 2 and +2, 2. Our focal points or foci, c squared is going to equal a squared minus b squared. So a squared is 49, b squared is 25. When we take that difference, we get 24. So square root of 24 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 6, which is 2 square root of 6. And we plus or minus. So again, because our ellipse is wide, we're going to add and subtract that 2 square root of 6 from the x coordinate of our vertex. So one of our focal points is going to be -5 minus 2 times the square root of 6. And then don't forget the y coordinate of 2. And we'll label that, I don't know, F1 for focal point number 1. And we're also going to have -5 plus 2 square root of 6. And then 2. And we'll label that one F2. So, in this case, 2 times square root of 6 is some goofy decimal. So, and we could just leave it as -5 plus or minus 2 square root of 6 over 2. Or if you wanted to, you can have it as 2 separate points. All right, part D, we have x minus 2 squared, or x minus 2 squared over 1, plus y plus 1 squared over 36 equals 1. So let's take a look at this one. I'm just going to go ahead and delete all this. Alrighty, and here is example 1D. So this one is tall. Again, we can put a 1 below the x minus 2 in parentheses squared, and the bigger denominator, 36, is below the y. So because the bigger denominator is below the y, that means our ellipse is going to be tall. And because there is such a difference between 36 and 1, it's going to be significantly taller than it is wide. But in any event, our center is at 2, -1. So let's go ahead and plot that point, 2, -1. And again, everything I'm doing on Desmos, you can still do on graph paper and all that. So we'll label our center C. And our vertices and foci are going to be going above and below the center because it is a tall ellipse. So to get the vertices, we have a squared is 36, which makes a plus or minus 6. So we're going to count up 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces above. We got 2, 5. And then count 6 spaces below, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 2, -7. So we're going to add and subtract that value of 6 to the y coordinate of our center since we're going up and down. So again, we get 2, -7 and 2, 5 for our vertices. Finally, our foci, c squared is a squared minus b squared. So we have 36 minus 1 is 35, and square root of 35, or square root both sides, we get c is plus or minus the square root of 35. And we can't simplify that any further than it is, so our focal points are going to be 2 and then -1 plus or minus the square root of 35. So again, we're going to add and subtract the square root of 35 from the y coordinate of our center. So we'll get our first one will be below. Let me make it a different color here. I'll go orange. There we go. And then our next one is going to be 2 and then -1 plus the square root of 35. So again, just zooming in on, I'll zoom in on this one. It's very, very close to the edge of the ellipse. Very, very close. However, there is a slight difference there. In fact, the closer the foci is to the edge of the ellipse, the more distorted it'll get. So in this case, we have a very, very close distance between our vertex up here and our focal point, which is going to really warp how tall the ellipse is compared to how wide the ellipse is. So, all right, that about does it for this video. Thanks for watching.